Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dardashat Cafe. In the previous episodes, we talked about evil and people got depressed, so we decided to move to a more delightful and beautiful topic art. We will learn how we can read a painting. Why did we choose this topic? Because every day we see paintings sold for millions of dollars, and we don't know why those paintings are worth so much money. We sometimes even see paintings in movies. So I am hosting today the Syrian artist Rasha Komery. She will explain how to read a painting. I will leave the floor for her to introduce herself. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Hi Nadine, I'm good. Thanks for having me in your program. As you mentioned, my name is Rasha Komery. I'm an Aleppo Art School graduate from the painting department. I participated in many exhibitions in Syria and Lebanon, and there will be another exhibition here in Turkey soon. What I can say about myself is that I am an academic person, so I hope I would provide useful information for you.
Okay, so here's my question. Sometimes I see a painting sold for $20 million and I don't understand why. Of course, I'm not an expert, so you can explain how we can read a painting and what determines the value of a painting and why paintings are sold for a huge amount of money.
Okay, so let's start with the term reading a painting and where that term came from. It actually dates back to the Middle Ages and it was called the Dark Ages for a reason. At that time, there were lots of wars and diseases, so most people did not care much about education. They were illiterate. Most of them could not read or write, regardless of their classes. And that actually presented a problem to the clergies and churches that had the power at that time. They were thinking of a way to teach these people, these illiterate people, about Bible. So how can you teach a person that could not read the teaching of the church? Of course, there were the audio way, like through speaking, telling it to people, but there actually was another solution, and that was through icons. Icons shows the events and incidents that happened in the Bible, and that where the term reading icons came up. When people are in church and see icons, they are actually reading them, not just watching them. And since churches were in control, they supported artists and paid them to work in this direction. At that time, the term reading paintings came up. Now, let's move to the main question, how to read a painting. There are three main things that people should be aware or at least consider, even if they have like basic knowledge about them. The three main things are colors, symbols, and stories. These three things are presented in most painting. If not all of them, at least there will be one or two in each painting. And I remember you were asking me earlier why there are paintings sold for ridiculous amount of money that sometimes doesn't make sense. Well, of course, a beautiful painting speaks for itself. A painting that contains all elements, such as colors, lighting, composition. Well, it says, I'm beautiful, come buy me, give me all your money. But on the other hand, and unfortunately, when all elements can't be presented in a painting, it could be sold for cheap price compared to a painting that could like look like a child doodle. Unfortunately, what sets a price to a painting is the name of the artist that created them and the media coverage that surrounds that artist. The other main element that plays a big role in the prices of the arts or the paintings is if that artist still alive or dead. Well, unfortunately, again, when an artist dies, his or her painting will prices will go up to the sky.
So, what you're saying is that artists can be poor for their whole lives, but their paintings can be sold for millions of dollars, just like what happened to Van Gogh.
Exactly. Van Gogh was very poor and had nothing. When he passed away, his relative and friends collected money for his funeral. Now his paintings are sold at auctions for millions of dollars.
Listen, folks, if you're thinking of your children's future and not much of your own, just make a career in art.
Yes, but the work has to be based on academic background. Just please be aware of that.
Of course. Let's go back to the matter of understanding paintings. You talked about symbols, colors, and stories. Can you go more into details so we can understand paintings if we ever see some? That would help us a lot in appreciating them, appreciating their beauty and the artist's effort so they would not end up with the same fate of Van Gogh's.
Sure, let's go through this step by step. Let's start with the colors. You may find it impossible to believe that we are reading colors in our everyday life, but we do. Imagine that you are on a street and you see a traffic light. You will understand the meaning of that colors, right? If you see, for example, a red light, well, it means stop. And if you see it green, it will mean go ahead. And when you see the yellow light,
Get ready.
well, let's hope that most drivers understand that. But yeah, sure, go ahead. Well, in that case, colors tells us what to do. But this is not the only thing that colors tell us. Colors can also inform us about the identity of people or things.
Yeah, I think we can bring soccer or football as an example.
Exactly. For example, you may go to a match where there are two teams playing. One of them use the color yellow as a uniform, while the other use the blue and white uniform. The yellow uniform is usually the color of
Brazil,
yes, while the blue and white team is usually
Argentina.
correct. And in this case, colors showed us the player's identity and nationality. But that is not the only thing that color can do also. Color can also guide us towards certain feelings, like emojis, for example, which is presented in most social media platform. A smiley emoji represent happiness, like this yellow smiley face. It's happiness, while green one represents
Sickness
and the red smiley.
is anger.
Exactly.
That reminds me of Pixar's movie Inside Out. It talks about what goes on in a person's brain, or let's say a teenager's brain. There are 5 emotions in her brain, and each of them has its own color. Joy is yellow, anger is red, disgust is green, and sadness is blue. So we can consider this example. I also have to mention that color that are also used through color grading. For example, comedies and romantic movies usually have bright or warm colors, while the colors in dramas and horrors and even thrillers usually have less saturation, or they tend to have greenish or bluish tones to get audiences into a depressing or horrifying mood. This is also another example of how we can connect paintings with movies.
Right. And speaking of movies, I'm not sure if everybody has seen the Matrix trilogy.
I think everyone has seen them. Have you guys seen them?
Inform us in the comment if you have seen them, and if you haven't, you must see them.
But don't worry, there are no spoilers this time.
Yes, well, in that movie, and I don't know if you can remember, there are two parallel worlds, reality and the Matrix world. In the Matrix, you can notice that the tone of the scenes is greenish, similar to the computer colors.
Yes, true.
That to show audience that they are inside of a computer. While reality scenes, uh, where reality is more of a depressing place, uh, they are showing it through low saturated colors. Some tones are even bluish to reflect the depressing mood and to show us that the world we are living in is not really a nice reality. In the same way, colors express the same theme in paintings. Sometimes you can see a painting with two colors that are complementary or even opposite to each other's, like red and blue or yellow and blue. In that case, you feel that there are two different positions or time periods. Speaking of the different time periods, Tenet, the movie, can you remember it was divided into two timelines? The first one is when the time was going back, and we noticed that the scene is kind of going to a bluish tone, while the second one is a normal timeline and it was presented with the red color. Another example, the Sixth Sense, if you remember. The colors are not highly saturated, but there are scenes where you can see corners with bright red color. In that case, the director does not intend to show different timelines or places. He is trying to show us the elements to highlight it to the audience. There is a different color in here, so pay attention. This is an important character.
Because he's trying to draw the audience's attention.
That's right. And the same goes for paintings. When you see a painting with a certain dominated color, but still there is like spots or highlights with different color from the rest, that indicate that the person or items painted with that different color is important. So pay attention to it. Well, people might wonder why I'm showing the relation between movies and paintings, but almost everyone watch TV and they are reading color through it, and we can read colors in the same way in the painting.
So we can explore the topic through movies.
Exactly. Let's move to the symbols. As I mentioned, we read colors every day, but we also read symbols in everywhere. Shops, car logos, everywhere. Even if in movies, again, you can see a person with a big hammer. Can you guess who he is?
I think he's from the Avengers, Thor.
Right, that was his symbol, his hammer. Well, if you see a blue and red shield with a star, who might that be?
Captain America.
Exactly. And even logos in movies can make you understand if that organization is good or evil. For example, if there is a skull in the logo, it means this organization or group of people are probably evil.
I think you mean the warning sign for dangerous places like the Minelands.
Precisely. All of them are symbols we read in our everyday life. Now, let's move to the story part, and we will be using another example from movies. Well, we watch stories on TV through series or movies, and they are taking time for us to understand. Like, you might see a story takes place in a series that could take an hour of your time, or maybe a story in a movie that could take about maybe 2 hours. Well, you see the exact same story in paintings, but the only difference it's only gonna take maybe 5 minutes of your time. The same way Hollywood movies always repeated stories, like love stories, horror stories. We can always see the same scene repeating again and again. There are too many medical TV series, but although the content is almost the same, but the look is different. Same goes with painting. There are they may look different, but the content of the painting is almost the same. For example, I cannot count how many painters have painted the goddess Venus, each on her or his point of view. The crucifixion scene, you can always see that the content is the same. There is a cross, there is Jesus crucified on it, and although there might be different elements around it, but well, the basic are there. And it will be different from each artist to another, according to his perspective, I guess. So it is really important to know the story behind the painting. And a quick tip, in case you don't understand a story in a painting, try to check the name of the painting. It could help us know the story. It's also important to see where the artist came from. An artist's culture background can explain the symbols and color in his or her paintings, because colors, the meaning of them are different depending on the location, countries, cities, or culture that the painting came from.
That's true, actually. In China, red is prosperity.
That's right, it's royal color.
Exactly. In other places, it doesn't necessarily mean the color of prosperity, it can have another meaning. Another example I can give is India. Usually, the mourning color is black in most countries around the world, but in India, it's white. This may sound strange, but it's the culture.
Exactly. This is why it is important to know an artist's background. Is he from Asia? Is he European? Is he from the Eastern country? Because the symbols in a painting may become really different once you know the background of the artist.
I have a question. Does the historical eras which the artists lived in can affect the meaning of the painting?
Not necessary. Historical eras affect the colors in the painting more than their meanings. For example, let's talk about the colors in the Renaissance era. At that time, the color industry was not that easy to reach, especially when it comes to blue and purple. They used to be the most expensive color at that time.
Yes, I remember someone raised the question on the internet about the reason why there is no purple color in all the flags around the world. Someone said that purple used to be the most expensive color a long time ago. If you check all countries' flags, you won't be able to find any purple flags.
For that reason, you cannot find these colors in most paintings made during the Renaissance era and Middle Ages. But on the other hand, you can still see these most expensive colors, the blue and purple, in some paintings. At that time, actually, people kept them for important figures, such as the Virgin Mary, Jesus, all the sacred figures. They were all drawn with these colors. Actually, blue represents divinity and spirituality. And the same goes for purple. It's a royal color. Most royal figures were painted with that color. There is an expression in English, born into purple. It indicated that the person is a high rank. So, going back to the main idea, it's really rare to see those color in paintings from those eras. Of course, later the Impressionists started to change that and started using purple and blue in their paintings, like all over the place.
That takes us to the next question. What about art movements? Is it important to know them to understand how to read paintings, or is it not that necessary?
It is somehow important. Well, some paintings intend to make you feel in a certain way rather than asking you to examine it in an academic way. For example, the Impressionists we mentioned earlier, what makes their work different from other types of artwork is their visible brush stroke and the texture they leave in their paintings. Actually, Impressionism represent the way an artist is able to see something and paint it. Or let's say how the view he sees impresses him in his mind. So the art movement can focus on the techniques. It can explain the reasons for the using of the color it can explain the historical era that the painting came from. As we all know, each art movement is related to a certain era. Certainly, all these movements are represented in our modern life right now, and every artist has his or her own preference, and I am one of them. But still, if you go back to the original paintings, like in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, for example, all of these eras show you the art movement that were come from at that time. And the art movement can show you the eras they belong to as well.
So, what you're saying is that it is enough to have a general idea about those movements.
Precisely. And I would like to tell the viewers that there is no need to be frightened or intimidated because these movement looks really different from each other. So it's really easy to identify one of the others.
So we can have a small research on the internet and everything would be all right. So let's move to the next question. You talked a bit about colors and symbols, so I think it would be better to go into more details about them.
Well, knowing the meaning of the colors is really important, but the meaning could get arguably different depending on the eras and cultures. Well, let's start with the orange color, which is somehow the easiest color. Orange is considered to be part of the earth color palette. It is a human color, so you can feel that the painting expressing people's life, the way they're living, they all contain lots of that color. Another example, green. While it is considered to be the color of nature, trees, grass, it's a relaxing color, uh, it is noticed to be the color of the poison sign. And it can also be the color of sickness. We already talked about purple, the royal color. We already mentioned that it was very expensive, not many were able to use it, so it was dedicated for the higher ranked people. But let us talk about red. It is a very interesting color. It could show anger, it could indicate war or hell, but it could also indicate blood, which is the color of life, of humanity. When people see a person with red cheeks, they would tell him that your face is looking happy, glowing, looking healthy. It is also the color of desire. So you see, in this color, it could go both ways, the bad and good, I guess. And also, it is the color of royalty, as we mentioned. So in ancient illustration and paintings, you can see the coronals and royal paintings were highlighted with red color. Until now, royal people still use this color and dress up with it, and of course, there is the royal red color. As for the color yellow, which is a really controversial color in my opinion, well, because the color can be the color of the light, the sun, the gold, and at the same time, it can be the color of jealousy, sickness, treason. Well, you remember the other day we mentioned Leonardo DiCaprio's wife in the movie Shutter Island. I don't think her yellow dress came from nothing. I guess the director wanted to give us a hint that about her mental illness, that she is mentally unstable.
Nice. Just to draw your attention, I was showing Miss Rasha some scenes from a movie that took ideas from famous paintings. We will talk about them in the next episode. We will talk about Shutter Island. We will talk about an animated movie. We will talk some other movies. You will be surprised how similar they look to those famous paintings. We will talk more about them in the next episode, so please wait for that. I just needed to mention that so you wouldn't be confused by something that we haven't mentioned in this video.
And speaking about yellow, if you see any of the paintings showing Judas, you would notice that he is wearing yellow. It is represent his treason to the Christ.
Because he betrayed Jesus.
Exactly, and even Saint Peter, who could be considered one of the most important figures in the church, you could see him represented in the painting wearing yellow as a top layer of clothing, while wearing blue underneath it. You know, the sign for spirituality. But yes, he did eventually deny Jesus. He did kind of betrayed him. And this is why I consider yellow to be nice color but yet controversial at the same time. And speaking of blue, the color of spirituality and divinity, as we mentioned, there is a fun fact about it. You know, the UN used this color for its logo, but do you know why they picked up that color in specific? Because it is the color of peace, and it's the opposite of red, the color of war.
Ah, I see.
This is why they picked up that color. But this color can also mean depression, and maybe some of you might be familiar with the term the blue period in Picasso's life. As they say, at that time Picasso was depressed, and this is why the blue color was a dominated color in his paintings. And actually, I don't know if I need to mention that, but yes, the color blue is also the color of sky. It could mean paradise, divinity, etc. So, yes, knowing the colors and their meanings help us a lot in understanding paintings. If you see a dominated color, especially in abstract painting, where there is almost only colors with nearly no shape at all, these colors makes you feel a certain way. So if you see a blue in a painting, you will understand that the artist is indicating his feelings of peace or depression. Well, it actually depends on the tone of the blue.
Like the dominant colors in the movies where you mentioned earlier, depending on the genre.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. This has been very informative. Next week, we will talk about the movie scenes taken from famous paintings so you can go deeper into this topic. I have mentioned that Russia has an upcoming exhibition. Which dates is that?
It will be in the art fair of Bodrum. The opening will be on the 23rd of this month, and the last day will be on the 28th of August this month.
So try to catch up with the exhibition to see her paintings.
I will be so happy to see you there.
Let us know in the comments if you have found out new things, if you have known any of the things we mentioned today, or if you have a different opinion about some of the symbols, some of the ideas that we brought up. Let us know in the comments what you think. We can also have more interviews with more artists if you want that. So, anyway, we will see you next time. What about you? What do you think? Share your comments and subscribe to our channel.